Let me tell you a well-known secret. 99% of smartphones are perfectly decent for most people. We could spend all day comparing small details of Geekbench results, open and close animations, or how many millimeters thick the bezel around the screen is. But the truth for most phones is that they're all the damn same. And with year-over-year improvements slowing down to a crawl, it's becoming more and more silly to buy a brand new $1,000 smartphone in my opinion. So what should you buy then? A Google Pixel 8. Not only was this a good value back when it launched in 2023, it's an even better value on the used market today. I bought this phone from Facebook Marketplace for only 350 Australian dollars. In American bucks, it's only around 230 US dollars. Let's take a closer look at this smartphone to see why it's such a great value for most people. But before we do that, we need to take a closer look at this video's sponsor. Have you bought a new smartphone recently and are just dreading the task of transferring everything over? Worry no more, because this video is sponsored by Wondershare and their Mobile Trans smartphone transfer tool. This tool allows you to transfer your data from one phone to another, even if they're on different operating systems. You can take your Android phone and copy over your pictures, messages, contacts, and even more to your iPhone. You can even copy the layout of your home screen from one phone to another, saving you time and effort setting it all up. Not only that, you can also transfer various data from your phone to your PC or Mac too, making the process of moving data as simple as possible. It also transfers data from individual apps too, the most notable being WhatsApp. I know from experience that transferring WhatsApp messages to another phone never works properly and I end up losing all of my messages. But Wondershare Mobile Trans makes this process so much easier. So do you have files that you need to transfer? Be sure to try out Wondershare Mobile Trans for free using the link in the description below. Thanks again to Wondershare for sponsoring this video. Let's take a look at the hardware of the Pixel 8. Long story short, it's a very standard smartphone. You've got your power and volume buttons on the right side, a USB-C port and speakers on the bottom, absolutely nothing on the left side. On the front you have a beautiful looking 6.2-inch display, which runs at 120Hz for silky smooth motion. Very nice. Also, this screen has a max brightness of 2000 nits. I cannot understate how useful this is because when I was daily driving my Pixel 8 Pro, I could use this phone in the harsh Australian sunshine with dark mode turned on and while wearing sunglasses. For those of you who care about bezels, they are symmetrical on this phone and they look good. One issue I do have with the display is not actually the display itself, but what's under the display, an optical fingerprint scanner. I really wish it was an ultrasonic scanner. The Pixel 9 series would fix this, but on the Pixel 8, you're stuck with a hit or miss fingerprint scanner that blinds you in dark lighting. On the back of the phone, you'll find some cameras. 2 of them to be exact. A 12 megapixel ultra-wide camera and a 50 megapixel wide camera, all housed inside the iconic Pixel visor design, which has the benefit of preventing your phone from rocking around on a table, an issue that plagues most smartphones these days. But honestly, the specs of the cameras don't matter as much as computational software does for modern smartphone pictures. And upon release, the Pixel 8 was one of the leading smartphones in this regard. Long story short, the Pixel 8 has amazing cameras, and it will absolutely smoke most phones, especially if you take that $350 budget and try to buy a brand new smartphone with it. Good luck. I'll show some camera samples later on in the video, but first, let's talk about software. Seven years of software updates. This phone is going to be getting new Android updates all the way until 2030. That alone makes this phone amazing for long-term usage. The only thing that holds this phone back, however, is the Tensor G3 processor. It wasn't a powerhouse when it launched compared to the latest Snapdragon processor at the time, and while I am typically someone who doesn't care at all about smartphone processors, you may feel the lack of performance later in the life of this phone as it gets closer to that end of support date in 2030. When I I switch from my Pixel 8 Pro to a Galaxy S24 Ultra with a Snapdragon processor, they both lag equally as much, so at this current moment you're really not going to notice a difference, unless you're gaming. The software itself is Google's Pixel UI on top of Android. From my experience, it's very smooth and reliable because it doesn't have a bunch of bloat slapped on top of it like other Android skins. It does have some exclusive features such as automatically detecting nearby music and using Google Assistant to hold calls for you, but it does lack in some features of other Android skins such as floating windows. Also, because Google makes Android itself, Pixel phones are typically the first devices to get security updates and the latest versions of Android. But what about AI? I don't give a shit. But this begs the question, what is it like to actually use this device? The battery life of the Pixel 8 is okay. This phone has a 4575 mAh battery. You'll be able to get through the day most of the time, but don't expect to have the strongest battery life. However, this doesn't really matter because this phone has an amazing battery saver mode. Turning this on essentially freezes your battery and it is a massive improvement. It's one of the best battery saver modes I have ever used on a smartphone. After switching to my Galaxy S24 Ultra, the battery saver mode barely even works on that device compared to just how great it was on the Pixel 8. Sure, the screen will run at 60Hz and the phone is a bit slower, but for the extended battery life you get, it's completely worth it. This phone also supports 27W fast charging. Not the fastest in the industry, but definitely a good amount to have. Okay, but what about the speakers? They sound good. This phone has stereo speakers with the earpiece acting as a second speaker, and it sounds good. What more could you ask for, to be honest? Let's take a look at the cameras. I've taken a few pictures using the Pixel 8, and these sample photos will appear on the screen now. So why the Pixel 8 and not something like the Galaxy S23/S24? Or what about the iPhone 15? While these phones were the direct competitors at the time of the Pixel 8's release, the simple fact is that you can find a Pixel 8 on the used market at a much lower price than those other phones. Let's head on down to Facebook Marketplace to see what smartphones are available in my area. The phone I got was listed for $375, but I managed to negotiate it down to $350. Yeah, I know. Big savings. For a similar price, you can get a Samsung Galaxy S23 for around $400. However, not only is this phone almost a year older than the Pixel 8, it only has one more year of software updates, and the screen doesn't get as bright as the Pixels. You do, however, get a third camera, which can be very handy. Things are even more dire in my city when you take a look at the Galaxy S24, which released only a few months after the Pixel 8. The only listing I can find is some goober trying to sell theirs for $900. But personally, I've seen listings for these go as low as $600, which is still double what I paid for my Pixel. Also, Galaxy S22 Ultras are still worth around $600 here. Heading on down to iPhone land, the iPhone 15, which is the equivalent iPhone to the Pixel 8, sits at around $800. There are some cheaper listings, but they were either damaged or just straight up scams. To get an iPhone at the same price I paid for my Pixel, you'd be looking at this slightly cracked iPhone 12 Pro Max or this iPhone 13. These are objectively worse phones than the Pixel 8. They are several years older and they don't even have high refresh rate screens. Switching over to eBay, everything is more expensive, of course. Here I managed to find some Pixel 8s for around $450 to $500. As for the Galaxy S23, I did actually find some for around the same price as the Pixel 8. A comparison between these two phones could really be their own video, but to sum it all up, get the Pixel 8 if you want the better photos and software support, but get the S23 if you want a slightly faster processor and a third camera. Taking a look at the Galaxy S24, they sit around $700 on eBay, but honestly, I really don't trust these listings. They kind of look a bit sketchy, but whatever, it's eBay. And even then, you're still paying several $100s more than the Pixel 8 just to really get a better processor and a third camera. And back to iPhone land, it's pretty much the exact same story from Facebook Marketplace. iPhone 15s are around $700 to $800, and we have to jump down to an iPhone 13 to get something that costs the same as our Pixel. Prices may vary in other markets, and you might get a crazy deal randomly on a different phone, but my point still mostly stands. Overall, I think the Pixel 8 is the best value and best all-round, no-nonsense smartphone that I would recommend to most people just looking for a phone. You've got great software support all the way until 2030, you have fantastic cameras, and the hardware design is great. Sure, it doesn't have the best specs, but most people don't play intensive games on their phones anyways, and if you're someone who is looking for the best graphical performance, you weren't looking at this phone anyway. I'm honestly not sure how well the Tensor G3 will hold up in 2030 running Android 21, but for such demanding tasks like scrolling through Instagram, answering a phone call, sending a text message, I think it'll be fine. My name is Frogford. You can say that however you want, I really don't care. New videos whenever I like. Consider becoming a channel member like all these people on the screen have. You get some bonus videos, early access to my upcoming videos, custom Discord server roles, and your very own Minecraft server, all rolled into one. Starts at $1 a month. And that's about it. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.